So, in homage to Friedrich Nietzsche, German, I'll say I'm completely opposed to any and all of the writings that this man is considered responsible for Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler visited and requested to visit Nietzsche's preserved former home after Nietzsche's passing. Nietzsche lived before Hitler. Hitler was Christian. If you read Mein Kampf, he makes statements such as, by exterminating the Jews, I am doing the Lord's work. Hitler had all of his Nazi soldiers wear belt buckles stating Gott mit uns, which is translated to such phrases as God is on our side or God is with us. While Nietzsche had written God is dead, we've murdered God. So you watch that Christians will go, bumper car stickers saying God is dead, signed Nietzsche, Nietzsche is dead, signed God, and be like, we told them. I'm like, well, no, you didn't, and in fact you went on to blame to the day. I bet you will drive cars with that bumper sticker while trying to say that Hitler was the philosophical progeny of Nietzsche. He wasn't. And even after visiting his house, what Hitler drew from Nietzsche concerned concepts of willpower, which I actually think is the breakaway concept from free will versus determinism argument. The former entails a recognition of a theistic God giving his free will to you. If that being is all-knowing, just as was stated in the Rule of Epicurus, if God is willing to prevent evil but not able, then he is impotent. Is he able but not willing, then he's malevolent. Is he neither able? Is he both able and willing? Then whence cometh all the fucking motherfucking evil? And is he neither able nor willing? Then why call him God at all? And Nietzsche. So, in addition, the story, his personal story, concerns parallels. That at age 5 he was in a paternity split, but it involved the death of his biological father, a Lutheran pastor. I get this as I read his writings. I feel a lot of empathy with hating the talk that if you're into philosophy that is opposition to religious right, then you have like father issues, for instance. Say, if you reject belief in God, which can be done solely on the definitions of what God is made up of in terms of his properties, all properties that are transcendental of the limitations imposed on the human, yet who constantly shows qualities that humans are able to overcome, like jealousy. All lovers of the theistic God of the Bible think jealousy means something fucking incredible, like it's a godlike trait. But why, with all infinite knowledge, infinite power, infinite locality, infinite love, infinite all of this, infinite this, infinite that, and yet he would succumb to such a petty and easily overcomable trait as jealousy in humans. So Nietzsche, this paternity split. What I've considered, and is my opinion, is that so young Nietzsche from birth till age 5 loved Jesus, and then detracted sometime after his father's death from church involvement. But you have to consider as well that church involvement would have been non-consensual at Nietzsche's end, at young Nietzsche's end. So it's not like his father would have been a Lutheran pastor saying, "Oh, by the way, if you want to go write a book about called The Antichrist, then do it." The flaw I see in the Antichrist is at his time. I love his writings in every way, because his style is such a literary style that it makes a redundancy out of argumentation, and that's rare in philosophers who achieve a depth of inspiration in their readers. It hardly happens at all. They either come across as being so head in the clouds that to read their writings is you go, fuck is this about? Or there's so much logic. Logic is overstated so much that, well, it's a bit like the moments in Star Trek where there are episodes where there's a smirk or a eye raise out of Spock because they've struck a human chord in the lesson of the episode, and so Nietzsche's rejection of Jesus Christ and in the Antichrist was a rejection of the four Gospels, of the idea that those same four Gospels can be unilaterally consolidated in terms of their conceptual content, and they can't, which would have left Nietzsche in conflict about what he was rejecting, but yet also spurred on about how wise and the success amongst his readers. So, the love of his life was a woman who he proposed to, and she declined his marriage proposal. So there was, and a woman's instinct is always cluey. So I've submitted that he carried a sort of a hate token with him of a kind, but that he wouldn't have if he were to have known of things like the Jesus seminars achievements about the datings of Mark's Gospel, and then Mark's Gospel being copied by the writers of Matthew and Luke's Gospel, and then John's Gospel being some sort of totalitarian consolidator. So all of Nietzsche's ideas, from going beyond good and evil, the genealogy of morals, to be human, the science of happiness, which was the book called The Gay Science, which was written back when gay meant happy, Twilight of the Idols, Thus Spoke Zarathustra. They're brilliant, and I haven't read all of Nietzsche's work to this day, but he's an incredible inspiration to me, and particularly the style of writing I've chosen for the book project that I've been working on since becoming a pain sufferer. I've gone, well, writing a book is something I could do, and since I've spent a lot of time in debates and arguments, what I don't enjoy about them are the bits where, like, the host ends up capping one side or the other from fully getting their point of view across. You always will have someone in both parties of a debate wanting to say more than they're allotted, leaving questions even substantively addressed in terms of logical response. So if you can be rationally poetic, then to such a degree that you bypass the conventional debate forum layout, and to that end, I have said that thematics like unifying belief and unbelief, because when you read the definition of a paradox, it's just to say, the potentiate reconcilability of concepts that are seen as being one side or the other of a fence, opposites, so irreconcilable, and yet they get bridged or reconciled to some extent. So since it's often that you find believers hating unbelievers on an ideological level, or conversely, unbelievers hating believers for being believers, to discuss that concept of godlessness as a new concept of God, and faith in a way that's not thought of as theistic insistence that belief without any sort of justification or proof is principled and virtuous, or more virtuous than having principles. Appreciating Jesus without following him, as if to say, if I go for a walk or a jog up a hill, and I'm to be nailed to a cross, then so be it, Lord. So the humanity of Jesus, therefore, I suppose, and and yet an understanding like an atheist or a godless understanding of faith, are sort of themes and concepts that I want to try and see if I can succeed in communicating in my book draft, which I've taken Isaac Newton's format from the Principia Mathematica. I called it Principia Unbeliever, and that Isaac Newton would credit Christianity for his physics discoveries. So the whole Principia in infidelity in Latin. So it's to show things like that I'm not on one or another side of the debate, but that's not Gnosticism either, because you can be a religious agnostic or a non-religious agnostic, because agnosticism was about saying there's limits to what we can know. I haven't made my mind up yet. They're two very different things. It requires you to assess a subject or a topic to great lengths, and then go, we can't know about this yet, at least yet. Like that's why and how you can understand the founding fathers coming forward, holding religion in contempt. They were deists. I think the only reason that belief in a personal God continued in the minds of Franklin and many of the founding fathers was because, to their criticism, they were hypocrites for, say, endorsing slavery, not abolishing slavery, and Lincoln even didn't free them all, and but yeah, the deism was there were considered in philosophical history. The two most poignant questions have been how comes it that the universe came to be, and how comes it that the human race has come to exist. So, failing that an answer could be provided, and they could have turned to David Hume. David Hume was the person who argued strongly that in a principle concerning human understanding, he argued that if you don't have a good answer, but you got motherfuckers throwing bad answers at you from all angles, you don't have to pick out of the best out of the bad answers. You can say, I suspend judgment. No answer is good enough yet, and thus I suspend my judgment that we may find a better answer to this question at a later time. However, in the time of founding fathers, what they did was go, well, we don't have a Big Bang. They didn't have the Big Bang theory. They didn't have Einsteinian general or special relativity. So concerning the origins of the universe, they had to fall back to first cause arguments, which themselves, upon criticism, are said to be absurdum, infinitum ad absurdum, because if you say God created the universe because everything that exists has to be created, then you can say, well, then what or who created God? So they say, well, God version 2 created God 1, who created the universe? Then you end up going, fuck it, why say you need a creator for the universe at all? You're just going to end up with an endless chain of gods, the one creating the next god, so that one god eventually creates the universe. But the deists believed in a first cause God, but that he fucked off to leave creation to its own devices afterwards, which meant until non-interventionists. And they spat upon the idea that you could pray to a god and that a god would intervene. Ben Franklin's famous lightning rod story involves there's a famous tale that at the time metallic church rooftop steeples were placed, and during lightning and thunderstorms, lightning often attracted to and would strike the cross, which wigged out church congregate members more in terms of the shape of the cross getting hit by lightning, and the priest viewed it as the personal message to the priest from God that there were unconfessed sins from members of the congregate. Now, so the priest would run around going, who's yet to disclose their unconfessed sins. Then Ben Franklin and his lightning rod, he's seen out the church building window holding this kite with a lightning rod, showing that the lightning was attracting metal, and electromagnetic ideas came out of Franklin's efforts. But morally, I suppose there's a greater chance they may have wanted to abolish slavery while writing about Liddy if they had abolished belief in God as well, a theistic God. But even that, we can't know of that because history is what it is. Yeah. So anyway, that's nearly 20 minutes. Yeah. To the end of his days, Hitler was Christian and was a monotheistic God believer. Christian critics of him, Dinesh D'Souza once says he was some sort of pagan. I've seen Christopher Hitchens abolish Dinesh D'Souza so many times over that I feel like taking Dinesh to my favorite curry restaurant and shouting him, which momentarily the name escapes me, but it's in Pierce. It's run by a lovely lady named Minnie, and they do the best curries I've ever eaten. So I'll be like, put in there, you got Hitch slap every time you debated him. Not to worry, I'll shout you a Vinloo. But yeah, so ultimately, at the later part of Nietzsche's life, because he had ripped on the divinity of Jesus Christ so much in the Antichrist, that he'd ripped on the humanity as well, because he had counted all of those texts together. So where I think that left him with a heartache that he couldn't understand himself, and that possibly accounted for the decline of his wedding proposal, is, I think, evidenced possibly by the story that we're told before he fell insane. He was to have seen a donkey or a horse somewhere, because the closest thing to a sin or infringement of Old Testament rules that Jesus once you strip away the absurd aspect of the stories that are extraordinarily difficult to believe in, you're left with, well, he stole a serial killer called Barabbas was let off, but Jesus stole a donkey or a horse, and Jesus had to be killed, of course. So Nietzsche, he's commendable on his writings, Life's Will to Power, and this sort of these even elements of the book of Ecclesiastes in the Old Testament come through in his writings of Life as Will to Power. I love all of that. I would say that Hitler took Nietzsche well out of context in trying to understand and apply willpower. Hitler wanted to do various experiments on Jews. He believed that they were almost like aliens. He was discounting of Jesus being a Jew himself. So he thought himself Jesus' avenger in some sense, but he didn't even know enough about his history, it seems to do so. And he had all his soldiers still calling upon the theistic God. So there's no way to say that. Yeah, you can say he took some of Nietzsche's written concepts of willpower, and then merged Machiavellian with Christian theism. Which means that he was perhaps trying to take over the will of God in some way and went power maniacal. We can't know or be sure. But later in Nietzsche's life, and before his decline into brain insanity, he sees his horse, which I think triggered some element of heartbreak, because he'd have gone, well, what's been wrong about my own works? Any good writer is their own worst critic. So perhaps guilt, because writing Life is Will to Power, Nietzsche's writings on the importance of human life, he would never say take a member of a enslaved and conquered group of people, accuse him falsely of being a king, and perform suicide murder on him, a human sacrifice. That element, him not being able to rule that out, but also not detect it, is what I think haunted him as a scholar, because it wasn't really going around that this dating order of these Gospels. So he was counting them on an equal footing, and that's his writing of, well, this book depicts Jesus, the martyr. You'll notice that out of all of the quotes from the Gospels that Nietzsche pulls in his writings, the fewest mentioned are from the Gospel of Mark. Anyway, thank you for your time.